Do you want to have a productive week? A month that brings real results? A life that fills you with pride when you look back? Then pause for a moment and look honestly at what you've been doing every day, because it's not about what you dream of. It's about what you repeat. A small daily change, multiplied by 7, can already transform the way you see yourself. And when your self-image changes, everything around you begins to change too. The Stoics understood this. They knew that silent discipline has more impact than 1,000 noisy intentions. They knew that the greatest results don't come from external control, but from inner strength, from what you choose to nurture within your mind, your body, and your actions. They trained themselves like warriors preparing for battle, in silence, with consistency, and without needing applause. That's exactly what we're going to do here. In this video, we'll dive into 7 Stoic habits, 7 tools of war that function as a shield against discouragement and a sword against stagnation. These are small actions with the power to refocus your attention, restore your strength, and reconnect you with what truly matters. Because productivity isn't about running faster. It's about wasting less. You might say you don't have time, but time exists. It's just been kidnapped by vices, distractions, and the excuses you repeat every time you start improving, only to sabotage yourself halfway. Results don't appear for those who wait. They're born for those who prepare. They don't emerge by magic. They respond to your consistency. Marcus Aurelius said, "The quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." But thinking well isn't enough. You must act in alignment. You must transform ideas into practice, and practice into a way of life. So right here in the comments, from today, I generate results. Because a new life doesn't begin on Monday. It begins the exact moment you decide to stop repeating the past and start building your future with clarity and intention. Let's begin. 1. Wake up before your mind starts making excuses. Days that generate results don't begin with grand ideas. They begin with small decisions. And the first one is simple but powerful. Get up. This isn't about heroism or toxic productivity. It's about training your mind the moment you wake up to remind yourself who's in charge. When you hit the snooze button, what you're telling yourself, even if you don't notice, is, "Today, I postpone. Today, I leave it for later. Today, I escape." And this pattern infiltrates your behavior like a silent crack. In the workout you skip, the project you delay, the message you don't reply to, the yes that becomes a maybe. Because if you start your day by surrendering, the rest of your decisions tend to follow that same rhythm, the rhythm of avoidance. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He wrote in his Meditations, "When the alarm sounds and you have every desire to stay in bed, remind yourself that you were made to act, not to hide under the blankets." That simple phrase is a brutal reminder. You weren't created to bury yourself in comfort every day. You were created to build your strength through action. Waking up early doesn't mean rising at 5 a.m. It means overcoming that first impulse that pulls you away from what matters. You can wake up at 6, 7, or 8. The hour doesn't matter as much as the gesture. The gesture of getting up before your mind starts negotiating with laziness. Think about it. Your mind is like a creative lawyer. It will argue, justify, and rationalize every excuse until you're convinced that staying is best. But the truth is, in that moment, you don't need arguments. You need action. Getting up is like pressing the internal button of discipline. It's saying to your body, now is the time, even if you're tired, even if you're sleepy, because it's in that first gesture of the day that you train the muscle of decision-making. And whoever starts with intention builds consistency. Imagine an athlete, a warrior, a leader. They don't wait to feel motivated to act. They move, and motivation follows. You can be that kind of person, someone who builds confidence not through promises, but through actions. So tomorrow, when your alarm rings, get up. Don't overthink it. Don't give doubt space. Get up with the firmness of someone who knows the world out there only responds to those who've already started moving inside. And if this awareness has already begun to vibrate within you, write here in the comments, "Today, I choose to begin with strength." Because the way you wake up determines the way you walk, and whoever wakes up with firmness ends the day with direction. 2. Movement is the language of inner strength. Before any external conquest, there is a body that moves. Staying still isn't rest, it's a disguised form of surrender. Your body was made to walk, expand, rise, push, overcome physical resistance, not to live hunched over a screen, waiting for motivation to fall from the sky. Movement is more than a matter of health. It's a conscious choice not to accept stagnation. It's saying with your body, "I'm still here, and I won't surrender to myself." Many people think the Stoics were only silent thinkers, but the truth is, they were men of physical and mental action. Marcus Aurelius, for example, wasn't just emperor of Rome. He was also a general who practiced wrestling, boxing, and even went on hunting trips. Seneca endured ice-cold baths, challenging his own body with discomfort. And Socrates, the great thinker, walked kilometers in silence, training not only his mind, but also his endurance. They understood the body is the instrument of the soul, and if that instrument is weak, out of tune, or motionless, no mental plan will have strength. There's a powerful story about former U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt. As a child, he was asthmatic, fragile, and weak. His father looked him in the eyes and said, "You have a brilliant mind, Theodore, but you need to strengthen your body." And that boy, at just 12 years old, replied, "All right, I'm going to make my body strong." That was the beginning of his exhausting life, and the transformation of a sickly child into one of the most vigorous presidents in history. Seneca also wrote, "We treat the body with rigor so it doesn't disobey the mind. Because without a firm body, the mind yields more easily. Without movement, everything blocks: energy, discipline, even clarity. You don't need to become an athlete, but you need to move, because physical inertia breeds emotional stagnation, and whoever overcomes laziness in the body begins to overcome themselves." Exercise is a training ground for consistency. When you choose to move even without desire, you're developing the most important muscle in your life: discipline. Physically disciplined people tend to be more focused, more productive, and more resilient, because they learn to resist the temptation of comfort. If you conquer laziness in training, you conquer it in life too. So make a commitment to your own impulse to grow. For 7 days, move. Every day, whether it's a walk, a stretch, a dance, or a few mindful breaths between tasks. What matters isn't the effort, it's the commitment. It's the message you send yourself as you move. I'm not a spectator of my life, I'm an active protagonist. Because a still body trains the mind in inertia, but a moving body reactivates vital energy. You don't need to train like an athlete or follow a perfect routine. What transforms your identity is repetition, presence, consistency. These 7 days aren't about performance, they're about presence. They're about you returning to care for your foundation, not for vanity, but for integrity. Every time you move, you're telling yourself, "I refuse to live life dimmed. I rise, I advance." And it's that gesture, repeated in silence, that transforms your body from a weak vessel into an awakened one. A body that supports, resists, and protects your mental clarity against life's blows. Because when you move with discipline, your mind begins to trust you. And that's where transformation occurs. Fatigue becomes energy. Apathy becomes direction. Move for 7 days, even if the world is frozen, even if you lack desire, even if no one sees. Your body is always listening, and it responds with greater focus, strength, and vitality. If that decision has already begun to vibrate within you, write in the comments, "I choose to be strong, mind and body." Understand this: when your body responds with firmness, your mind learns to trust, and results begin to appear where there was only fatigue. 3. Keep a journal. There is a place where your confusion transforms into clarity, where scattered thoughts take shape and misunderstood emotions begin to align. That place is paper. Writing isn't a luxury, it's an act of mental hygiene. It's like bathing from within. You clean the excess, reorganize the chaos, and give meaning to what was once just emotional noise. Many believe they need the perfect journal, the ideal pen, beautiful handwriting, or inspirational quotes. But the Stoic journal isn't made to be shown, it's made to be felt. The notebook doesn't matter. What matters is the gesture, pausing for 5 minutes to pull out what's blocking you from within. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to build a legacy, he wrote it to train his mind. It was his personal journal, a sincere conversation with his own thoughts, where he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over events. Understand this, and you will have strength." And that strength is born when you stop thinking only with your head and begin writing with your soul. Writing isn't just recording ideas, it's organizing chaos. Science confirms this. When you write about what you feel, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the brain area responsible for decision-making, focus, and emotional regulation. A study showed that putting emotions on paper reduces stress intensity and increases feelings of clarity and control over one's life. It's like wiping a fogged mirror. Suddenly, you can see yourself clearly. Think of your thoughts as leaves scattered by the wind. If you don't organize them, they're lost. If you don't name them, they become noise. But when you write, you collect those leaves and turn them into pages. Pages that tell your evolution, preserve your lucidity, and mark the trail of your growth. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, writes daily what he read, learned, and even how many push-ups he did. Not for vanity, but as a record of the person he's becoming. Because whoever writes with intention strengthens their own identity. You begin to see patterns, recurring mistakes, recurring emotions, and you gain greater mastery over yourself. You don't need to write pages. Start with one line. Record an idea that touched you, a mistake you don't want to repeat, a fear you want to overcome, or simply what you learned today. What matters is that the phrase is yours, sincere, written with presence. That moment with paper is a mirror of the soul. It's where you stop fleeing from yourself. It's where you meet who you were, reconnect with who you are, and plant the seeds of who you can still become. For the next 7 days, write 1 line a day, a thought in the morning, a reflection at night. Because writing is sowing awareness, and every lasting change begins with self-awareness. If that seed has already begun to sprout within you, write in the comments. Today, I choose to write my evolution. Start now, with few words, but with your full presence. Because when you write what you feel, you stop losing yourself inside, and you truly begin to transform. 4. Do the things you've been putting off. Seneca said, "The greatest tragedy of life isn't the mistakes we make, it's the time we waste." Procrastination steals something that never returns, the now. It's easy to say, "I'll do it tomorrow. I'll fix it later. Next week I'll start." But that's the most convincing lie in the world. It seems harmless, and precisely because of that, it's so dangerous. Procrastination is a slow form of self-sabotage. Putting things off is like accumulating emotional trash. Each ignored task becomes weight, noise, and occupies valuable mental space. Space you could use to create, act, and build. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could be good today, but you choose to be good tomorrow." And in that choice, tomorrow repeats so often that one day, it becomes years. And life doesn't wait as long as you think. The Stoics believed the value of an action lies in the present. If something deserves to be done, do it now. Procrastination is a kind of arrogance. It's believing, without any guarantee, that time will be available later, that your energy will remain the same, that circumstances will be perfect at some idealized moment, which, deep down, you know will never come. Have you seen what happens to a house no one cleans for weeks? Dirt accumulates slowly until the environment becomes uninhabitable. The same happens in the mind of someone who postpones what's important. Small, ignored decisions become large, invisible blockages. Seneca called this the greatest waste of life. Each day that passes is stolen from you, and when you postpone, you trade the secure present for an uncertain future. So, if something is bothering you, resolve it. Start with one pending task. If there's a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, have it. If there's a decision you've been delaying, make it. If you're waiting for motivation to start a project that's been stuck on paper, stop waiting. Start acting, even without desire. You don't need to solve everything at once, but you need to begin. Choose one thing you've been postponing for days, weeks, or even years, and take the first step today, even if it's just an email, a call, a plan, a yes or a no. This week, face one pending task each day, not out of haste, but out of the lightness of breaking free from the mental cycle of later. Because every postponed task is like an anchor holding your life's boat, even when the sails are ready. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Do what you fear, and the death of fear will be certain." Don't wait for inspiration. Act with clarity. Power lies in beginning. The result comes in the next step. And if you're ready to break the cycle of procrastination, write here in the comments, "Today, I do what must be done." That decision, repeated with intention, may not change the world in a day, but it will change the course of your story, one act at a time. 5. Sleep, like someone preparing for victory. You want to wake up early but can't get out of bed. You want energy and focus, but you're constantly tired. You want results, yet you keep ignoring the most basic thing. Your body needs rest. The problem isn't just in difficult mornings, it's in how you end your day. You demand performance from an exhausted mind. You crave emotional clarity while your biology is collapsing. But no miracle can replace sleep, because sleep isn't a pause, it's the center of your mental realignment. During the night, your brain organizes memories, regulates hormones, adjusts your mood, and strengthens your ability to decide. It's like a command center doing maintenance while you rest. But when you neglect this process, it's like not charging your battery and then blaming the phone for shutting down. You demand presence, but you live in reserve mode. Seneca warned about this centuries before science confirmed it. People fear death, but bury themselves slowly in poorly slept nights, useless distractions, and meaningless work. And that's exactly it. Each poorly slept night is a little piece of you dimming. You lose energy, but you also lose lucidity, clarity, and power of decision. Sleeping well isn't just health, it's strategy. It's respecting your body as the instrument of your evolution. Seneca recommended silent evening walks, deep contemplation, and the habit of teaching the mind to calm down, because he knew no restless soul finds peace, whether sleeping or living. Marcus Aurelius did the same. Before sleeping, he'd write by lamplight, reviewing his actions, mistakes, and decisions. It was a simple ritual, but powerful, because it closed the day with awareness, not haste. You don't need expensive apps or smart mattresses. You need intention. Create your own ritual. Turn off screens an hour before bed. Read something that elevates your spirit. Say a prayer. Write a line in your journal. Breathe. Be grateful. Close your eyes with lightness, not anxiety, because sleeping well isn't laziness. It's preparation. It's saying to yourself, "I take myself too seriously to sabotage myself in the most basic detail." And if this decision has already begun to stir within you, write in the comments, "Today, I sleep like someone who wants to live well." Because every powerful morning begins with a well-ended night, and every solid result begins with the silent choice to rest with dignity. 6. Reserve time to learn. If you're not learning, you're stagnating. And stagnation isn't rest, it's disguised regression. It comes slowly, without warning, like a small leak in a boat. At first it seems harmless, until you realize you're sinking into monotony, apathy, the feeling that days pass, but you don't advance. Perhaps you felt it, as if you're watching your own life from outside, seeing opportunities pass without the strength to grasp them. This isn't bad luck. It's not lack of talent. It's a clear sign you've stopped growing. Learning isn't a luxury, it's mental survival. And it's not just about books or degrees. It's about your ability to evolve with life, to reinvent yourself in the face of challenges. Think of your mind as a muscle. Challenge it daily, or it weakens and begins repeating the same patterns. Who doesn't study doesn't grow. They just spin in circles like a broken needle playing the same note until everything sounds the same. Seneca said, "As long as one lives, one must learn to live." And this applies to all ages, all stages, all paths. Because when you stop learning, you begin living on autopilot, reacting without thinking, deciding without awareness, suffering without knowing why. Today, neuroscience confirms what the Stoics already practiced. A Stanford University study showed that those who keep learning develop what's called a growth mindset, meaning they believe they can improve with effort even after failing. That simple belief reduces fear of mistakes and increases willingness to try again. Learning then changes the way you feel, think, and act. But why do so many still stop learning? Because learning requires effort, and the human brain prefers repetition over challenge, because we live in an era of passive consumption, where scrolling is easier than reflecting, and because comfort hooks you. Staying limited to what you already know feels safe, but inside, it corrodes your purpose, slows your mind, and cools your will. Imagine it practically. An entrepreneur who stops studying the market loses ground. A professional who doesn't update becomes dispensable. A relationship where no one learns to communicate becomes automatic coexistence. And a person who stops questioning themselves begins living a life that's no longer theirs. They're just there, by habit. But nothing flourishes in habit, only survives. So commit to movement. You don't need a costly course or to change careers today. Start small. Read 10 pages of a book that intrigues you. Watch a class that shakes your worldview. Learn something new from someone younger or older. And most importantly, question your own truths. Ask yourself, could there be a better way to think about this? That question opens paths. That question dismantles beliefs. And that question, asked with courage, puts you back on the path of growth. Because what's holding you back isn't often lack of opportunity. It's lack of inner movement. And that movement only begins when you decide you won't keep living stuck. As Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Knowledge is out there, but no one can learn for you. Learning is a pact with your future, and if you want a different future, you need to learn something new today. So tell me, what will you learn this week? Write in the comments, "Today I choose to grow," because whoever chooses to grow every day builds a life where results are a consequence, not a mere accident. 7. Begin to live with control. Control for the Stoics wasn't rigidity, it was applied wisdom, knowing what to do with what you feel, what you think, and what you desire. And this kind of control goes far beyond how much you spend or how many hours you spend on social media. It's about temperance, the art of using your inner strength to grow, not to sabotage yourself. The first form of control is the most ignored, control over dissatisfaction. Complaining may seem like a legitimate release, but it's actually an emotional habit disguised as sincerity. Every repeated complaint reinforces your powerlessness, while every action you face restores your power. Someone who lives complaining isn't seeking a solution. They're seeking justification to stay stuck. Imagine you're in the middle of the ocean, in a boat with a leak. You could spend hours blaming the hole, the wind, or the person who built the boat. Or you could grab a bucket and start bailing water, even without a guarantee you'll reach shore. Most people complain and sink, but those who have control act, and those who act grow stronger. The second form of control is invisible, but devastating. Control over your thoughts. Your mind is a garden. If you let weeds grow unchecked, doubt, fear, comparison, they choke the flowers of clarity, peace, and courage. The Stoics didn't try to suppress thoughts. They trained themselves to observe them and choose which ones to water. Every time you replay a past mistake, you water the weed of guilt. Every time you imagine future disasters, you water the weed of fear. Every time you compare yourself to others, you water the weed of inadequacy. Control means recognizing these weeds and choosing to stop watering them. Instead, water the seeds of acceptance of what you can't change, action on what you can, gratitude for what you have. Control over thoughts isn't about being emotionless. It's about being aware. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. That space is where freedom lives. And when you master that space, you master your life. The third form of control is control over your time. Time isn't your enemy. Your lack of boundaries is. Whoever says yes to everything says no to their own purpose. Whoever answers every message, attends every meeting, checks every notification, is giving away their most precious resource. Control means saying no, not out of rudeness, but out of reverence for your own energy. Control means protecting your focus. It means turning off distractions. It means scheduling deep work. It means honoring your rhythm. The Stoics didn't rush. They didn't multitask. They didn't chase urgency. They cultivated presence. And that presence, that focused, intentional, calm control, is what transforms ordinary days into extraordinary lives. So ask yourself today, where am I wasting energy? What thoughts am I feeding? What am I saying yes to that I should be saying no to? And then choose. Choose control, not as a restriction, but as liberation. Because true freedom isn't doing whatever you want. True freedom is doing what you choose, with clarity, courage, and calm. When you live with control, you stop being a victim of circumstances. You become the architect of your destiny. Write in the comments, today, I choose control, not chaos. Because the most productive week isn't measured in tasks completed, but in the quiet mastery of your inner world.